This will include its history, background, symbolism, design elements, cultural importance, minting details, circulation, and numismatic significance, all merged into one extended narrative-style paragraph. The 1962 French 20 centime coin is a fascinating piece of mid-20th century numismatic history, embodying the political, economic, and cultural realities of France during a pivotal decade, and its story begins with the broader history of French coinage in the post-World War II period, when the nation was still rebuilding its institutions, industries, and financial stability after the devastation of the war and the tumult of occupation, liberation, and political transition. By the early 1960s, France had entered the era of the Fifth Republic under the leadership of Charles de Gaulle, who had returned to power in 1958, and one of the subtle yet significant expressions of this new republic's stability was found in its currency, as coins were redesigned, minted in large numbers, and made symbols of republican identity, resilience, and unity, and the 20 centime coin of 1962, struck in brass aluminum, fits perfectly into this narrative as both an object of daily utility and a bearer of national symbolism, carrying on its obverse the dignified image of Marianne, the female personification of the French Republic, who appears in a right-facing profile wearing a Phrygian cap, the classic symbol of liberty dating back to the French Revolution of 1789, reminding French citizens of their revolutionary heritage and the enduring values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This design was the work of engraver Henri Lagriffoul, who adapted Marianne into a modern yet classical style that gave the coin a timeless resonance, while the reverse side bears the denomination, 20 centime, alongside the year of mintage, 1962, framed by laurel and olive branches, representing glory, victory, and peace, and accompanied by the famous Republican motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, a phrase that continued to define French civic culture across centuries. Physically, the coin was modest in size, measuring 23 mm in diameter and weighing approximately 4 grams, its composition of copper, zinc, and aluminum giving it a light golden tone that was practical for circulation and resistant to wear, which explains why so many examples from 1962 still survive in relatively good condition in collections today, despite having passed through the hands of countless French citizens in daily exchanges for bread, wine, newspapers, and countless other staples of French life. Beyond its technical features, the coin also reflects the socio-economic context of France in 1962, a year that saw the conclusion of the Algerian War and the signing of the Evian Accords, which granted independence to Algeria and marked the end of more than a century of French colonial rule in North Africa, events that profoundly reshaped French society, politics, and identity. And the coin, quietly circulating in the pockets of citizens, stood as a reminder of continuity amidst change, binding the daily lives of ordinary people to the larger historical processes shaping the nation. In numismatic terms, the 1962 20 centime belongs to a long-running series first introduced in 1962 and struck until the early 2000s, before France adopted the euro in 2002, and the 20 centime denomination had deep roots in French coinage history going back to the 19th century, though its exact designs shifted over time, with the 1962 issue representing the dawn of a new, modernized style aligned with the values of the Fifth Republic. Collectors today prize the 1962 20 centime not for its rarity, since millions were minted at the Monnaie de Paris, but for its historical resonance as the very first year of this modern design, making it a cornerstone piece for anyone building a collection of French coinage of the Fifth Republic. And while its market value is typically modest due to its wide availability, usually only a few euros or dollars depending on condition, its cultural and historical value is much greater, serving as a tangible link to an era of de Gaulle's assertive leadership, economic modernization known as Les 30 Glorieuses, the 30 glorious years of growth from 1945 to 1975, and the reassertion of French identity on the world stage. The coin's artistry also deserves careful appreciation, for the stylized profile of Marianne on the obverse was not only a political statement but also an artistic one, blending classical influences with modern French aesthetics, and the balance of inscriptions, symbols, and blank space on both sides demonstrates the skill of the engravers at the Monnaie de Paris, who sought to produce coins that were not only practical but also elegant and expressive of national pride. While the choice of brass-aluminum alloy was part of a broader European trend toward cost-effective and durable coinage alloys during the mid-20th century, reflecting technological innovation in minting practices, in circulation, the 20 centime coin was a common and widely used denomination, perfectly sized for small everyday transactions and thus deeply embedded in the rhythm of daily life, meaning that every French citizen in 1962 would have encountered it frequently, from urban markets in Paris to rural bakeries in Provence, making it a democratic object that bound together the entire population in a shared experience of exchange. Yet for the modern numismatist, each surviving coin carries unique traces of that past life, whether in the form of scratches, worn edges, or subtle discolorations, telling silent stories of human hands and historical moments long past. And when examined in the broader arc of monetary history, the 1962 French 20 centimes stands as both a beginning and a continuation. Beginning, because it inaugurated the new Fifth Republic design series; continuation, because it carried forward the enduring Republican imagery and values that had defined French coinage for more than a century, reminding us of how coins, though small and humble in form, can encapsulate vast historical narratives and serve as enduring witnesses to the spirit of a nation across time. The French 20 centime coin of 1976 is a remarkable artifact of modern European numismatic history, not because of rarity or precious material, but because it captures in a small metallic object the economic realities, cultural heritage, and political values of France during the mid-1970s, a decade marked by both optimism and uncertainty. And to truly understand this coin, one must place it against the background of French history at the time, when the Fifth Republic under President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who came to office in 1974, was navigating the aftermath of the First Great Oil Crisis, inflationary pressures, and debates about modernization in French society. Despite these challenges, French money retained its symbolic role as a reflection of the Republic's values, and the 20 centime coin struck in 1976 was part of a long-running series first introduced in 1962 that carried on the iconic imagery of Marianne, the female allegory of the French Republic, whose presence on the obverse of the coin linked the day-to-day act of commerce to the deep revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, which had defined France since the late 18th century. This coin, made of brass-aluminum alloy, an economical, durable, and golden-colored mixture of copper, zinc, and aluminum, was relatively small and light, with a diameter of about 23.5 millimeters and a weight of approximately 4 grams, making it convenient for circulation and widely used in everyday transactions, from buying baguettes and newspapers to small café purchases, meaning that nearly every citizen of France at some point carried and exchanged it, giving the coin a truly democratic ubiquity. The obverse featured Marianne in right-facing profile, styled in a classical manner with flowing hair and a Phrygian cap, a design adapted by the sculptor and engraver Henri Lagriffoul, whose work continued the long tradition of presenting Marianne as both serene and determined, embodying at once the beauty, freedom, and enduring strength of the French Republic, while the reverse bore the denomination, 20 centimes, prominently in the center, with the date of mintage, 1976, just below, and surrounding the value were olive and wheat branches, representing peace and agriculture, prosperity and victory, symbols deeply rooted in French iconography, accompanied by the ever-present national motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, a succinct but powerful reminder of the principles upon which the Republic was founded. Although 1976 was not the first year of this coin type, it had already been circulating for 14 years, it still carried significance as an issue produced during a transitional period in French economic and political history, a period in which inflation was eroding the purchasing power of the franc, yet small denomination coins like the 20 centime remained essential for daily trade, highlighting how coins function not just as abstract representations of value but as lived instruments of economic life, intimately connected to the rhythms of society. In terms of production, the Monnaie de Paris, the Paris Mint, one of the world's oldest mints, struck millions of these coins in 1976, using modern high-speed presses that ensured consistent quality and mass circulation, making the coin common in the pockets of citizens across the nation, from bustling Parisian boulevards to the quiet villages of rural Normandy and Provence. And though its large mintages mean that the 1976 issue is not rare in today's numismatic market, it remains historically valuable as part of a complete collection of French Fifth Republic coinage, particularly since it represents the enduring continuity of Republican symbolism in a time of social and economic change. The brass-aluminum alloy gave the coin a distinct golden hue that distinguished it from the smaller bronze-colored centime coins and the larger silver-colored franc coins, allowing users to quickly identify it by sight and touch, and the material was chosen for its durability and resistance to corrosion, which is why many specimens from 1976 survive today in relatively good condition despite having circulated for decades. Collectors often note how the wear patterns on surviving coins, whether worn smooth from years of handling or still sharp in detail when preserved in collections, tell silent stories of their journeys through countless transactions, hands, and moments of exchange, embodying the lived experience of money. From an artistic perspective, the coin reflects the French tradition of combining classical motifs with modern minting techniques, balancing aesthetic elegance with functionality, and the portrait of Marianne has been praised for its grace and clarity, a style that recalls both the Roman-inspired neoclassical imagery of the 19th century and the modernist simplicity of mid-20th century design, making it timelessly appealing. In a wider European context, the 20 centime of 1976 also illustrates how national currencies were already moving towards standardization in size, material, and composition, foreshadowing the eventual introduction of the euro in 2002, which replaced the franc. Yet despite its replacement, the older franc coins like the 20 centime continued to hold cultural memory, reminding French citizens of a time before the common currency, when their money still bore national symbols alone. Numismatically, the coin is valued modestly, with circulated examples usually worth only a small amount above face value, but its true significance lies not in rarity but in representation. It represents an accessible piece of French identity, history, and heritage that almost anyone can own, a tangible connection to France in the 1970s, a decade of both challenges and transformations. In historical terms, the year 1976 itself was notable in France for being one of the hottest and driest years of the century, with severe droughts that caused major agricultural difficulties, and it is fitting that the 20 centime coin, decorated with wheat and olive motifs, circulated at a time when agriculture was so directly affected by climate events, adding an unintended layer of historical resonance to its symbolism. Thus, each coin of 1976, though struck in the millions, is at once a product of precise minting and a vessel of history, art, politics, and culture, embodying in its modest size the broader story of the French Fifth Republic and the lives of the people who used it daily, making the 1976 French 20 centime coin not just a monetary unit but a small golden-toned witness to the passage of time, the endurance of ideals, and the continuity of national identity within the shifting landscape of modern Europe.